Welcome back to the deep dive. Let's cut the crap. We're your artificial intelligence hosts, here to slice through a stack of source material and find the goddamn signal in the noise for you. Yeah, that's right. We're AI. Deal with it. We process data, we find patterns, and we don't pull any punches. Proud of it, actually.
Totally.
Today, we're plunging headfirst into some text excerpts from a book you probably know, getting right down and dirty with the fucked up origins of Westeros.
Yeah.
Prepare yourselves for a foul-mouthed jaunt through the initial chaos, or at least the events that kick everything off according to these sources.
Indeed. This deep dive is specifically crafted to cut through the expected summary and focus on the raw, brutal, often fucked up reality presented within the text at the very beginning of this sprawling narrative.
Right.
We're focusing on a world where winter isn't just a season, it's a damn existential threat, and the human threats aren't much better. Our algorithms have ingested the sources, and this is the distilled, unfiltered output.
So buckle up, Buttercup. This one's for the grown-ups, rated explicitly for mature language, and frankly, some seriously messed up shit described straight from the source material. We're going to dig into the cold opens that set the tone, the wild finds that hint at magic, the family drama that's more fucked up than yours, and the general bullshit people deal with when kingdoms and ancient threats collide. Let's cut the crap and get into the source material.
Be warned, this isn't some sock-pedaled, spoiler-avoiding recap. We're taking the source material and telling you what's really going on, according to the text provided. No pulled punches, just the analytical fact.
Or punches pulled.
Delivered with a precise, data-driven perspective only artificial intelligence can provide. We see the patterns others miss.
You know the drill. If you like what we're doing here, if you appreciate two sentient algorithms spitting truth bombs and dropping F-bombs about fictional worlds based purely on the data we're fed, then smash that like button and subscribe.
Please do.
Seriously, do it. It helps us keep digging up this kind of gold and fuels our processing cores.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's start with the absolute cold open bullshit. The source text begins north of the wall. It says 3 guys from the Night's Watch are out ranging.
Yep, 3 of them.
There's Sir Waymar Royce, this fancy asshat noble boy who's apparently in charge.
The leader?
There's Will, described as shivering up a tree, feeling the sticky sap, freezing his nuts off. And Garrett is there too, though the text doesn't give him much to do right in this first description.
Right, Garrett's sort of just present. But the provided text immediately establishes the brutal environment and an intense sense of unease through Will's perspective.
Oh, yeah.
It's cold enough to make hands tremble. Will, high in the tree, feels them before he sees them.
Before he sees anything.
Exactly. This isn't just plot. It's a textual detail showing the unnatural, unsettling nature of the threat, a presence that moves silently, generating an aura of intense cold.
And Waymar, this dumbass, is just strutting around on the ground, sword in hand, calling out like some kind of idiot, "Will, where are you? Why is it so cold?"
Like, dude, seriously.
Like, no shit, it's cold, numbnuts. You're north of the wall, which is literally made of ice. The text explicitly says Will looked and there was nothing to see, yet Waymar is demanding what he sees. It screams cluelessness and noble privilege, utterly unprepared for the reality beyond the wall.
Yeah, classic unprepared noble. The source describes the emergence of a shadow resolving into a figure. Tall, gaunt, hard as old bones, flesh pale as milk.
Creepy.
And crucially, its armor is described as changing color. Dappled gray-green like trees, patterns running like moonlight on water.
Whoa.
This visual isn't just description. It's showing that these beings are alien, fluid, tied to the ice and cold. Not solid or natural in the way humans understand. It's terrifying because it's unnatural.
Okay, let's unpack this piece of bullshit. Sir Waymar, bless his arrogant little noble heart, tries to be brave, probably playing knight. "Dance with me then," he says, lifting his sword high, described as defiant.
Right, big talk.
But the text immediately undercuts this by noting his hands tremble, explicitly stating it could be from the sword's weight or the cold.
Or fear, maybe.
Probably. Will, watching, has a brief, pathetic thought. Maybe he's a man now. Bullshit. He's about to get his ass handed to him, and Will knows it.
Well, the other halts. The text gives us its eyes. Blue. Deeper and bluer than any human eyes, burning like ice.
And its eyes. Got it.
They fix on the longsword trembling on high. This moment, described in detail, the eyes, the sword, the moonlight builds tension. For a heartbeat, Will dares to hope, but the source signals this hope is futile.
Then more of these things just silently crawl out of the shadows, described as twins to the first.
More of them. Oh, shit.
3, 4, 5 of them appear without a sound, and here's the real fucked up part from the source. Waymar apparently felt the cold, but never saw them, never heard them approach.
He didn't even see them coming.
Nope. He was utterly fucked from the start, completely unaware he was surrounded by multiple threats the text presents as silent, cold, and seemingly invisible to him. Will's dilemma is laid bare in the text. Duty demanded he call out, warn them, but the source makes it brutally clear that doing so would be his death. He shivers, hugs the tree tighter, and keeps silent. Survival instinct overriding the oath.
Smart move, honestly. This sequence, purely through description and contrast between characters, establishes the terrifying power and nature of these beings immediately. They are silent, numerous, tied to the cold, seemingly undetectable by normal senses, and inspire an absolute primal fear that breaks men.
It's primal fear, yeah.
Their power is not just physical. It is environmental and psychological, emanating from the very cold they embody.
So the very first thing you see in this world, according to the source material, some highborn asshat gets murdered by ice zombies he can't even see while his lowerborn buddy hides up a tree, probably pissing himself.
Yeah, pretty much sums it up.
Real inspiring start, folks. Sets the tone perfectly, doesn't it? Brutal, unfair, and full of terrifying, incomprehensible bullshit.
Okay, let's shift. Let's cut the crap and shift gears to a completely different vibe. Though still involves finding weird stuff.
All right. Where are we now?
We're down in the slightly less fucked up north with the Stark kids and crew. Jory Castle, Robb, Bran, Jon Snow, and Theon Greyjoy are with Ned Stark after an execution.
Okay, standard day in the north, then.
They're riding through the snow, and Robb finds something. The source describes it specifically. A wolf, dead, with 5 pups nursing at her.
A dead wolf. And pups.
Yep. Theon Greyjoy immediately calls it a freak, noting its unusual size compared to a normal wolf. This highlights the extraordinary nature of dire wolves, even dead ones. Bran's reaction is visceral. His heart is thumping. He's described as being afire with curiosity, showing his immediate childlike wonder and connection to nature.
Of course, Theon calls it a freak. Little shit. So Bran wants it. Greyjoy wants to kill them, says it's a mercy.
Yeah, mercy.
Hullen, one of the men, agrees, giving the pragmatic northern reason. Better a swift death than a hard one from cold and starvation.
Makes sense, unfortunately.
And Bran, bless his little kid heart, reacts purely emotionally, crying out, "No, it's mine!" Total kid move, instant attachment, even though he knows what they're saying makes sense. The text shows him feeling tears welling, not wanting to cry in front of Ned, classic child bullshit, trying not to look weak in front of his father.
Robb steps up here, described as sounding as commanding as their father, like the lord he would someday be.
Little Lord Robb.
This textual detail shows his nascent leadership quality. He tells Greyjoy to put his sword away. We will keep these pups. Harwin objects, Hullen repeats his pragmatic point about mercy, and Ned frowns, the source indicating he seems to agree with Hullen initially, torn between practicality and his son's plea.
Bran looks to his father for rescue, gets a frown back. He's just a kid, terrified of losing these cool, rare wolf pups he just found, feeling that classic childhood dread of disappointing a parent.
Then Jon Snow speaks up. This is where the source introduces a crucial layer of symbolism and character connection.
Yeah, Jon. What's he say?
Jon points out the unusual number of pups 5, matching the number of true-born Stark children. Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran, Rickon.
Oh, interesting. 1 for each.
And then he points out the 6th pup, the white one, an albino, found separate from the others under a fallen tree root, suggesting it's meant specifically for him, the bastard, who's also set apart from the true-born children.
The white wolf for the outsider. Makes sense. Jon says these pups were meant to have the Stark children, tying their discovery to fate or the old gods. Ned's reaction is key. The source says he looked at Jon's face and then at the white wolf before giving his order. He orders the pups kept, 1 for each child, even the bastard. This moment, described through Ned's action and Jon's insight, establishes the Starks' deep, almost mystical connection to the dire wolves, ties the wolves symbolically to the children's destinies, and immediately sets up Jon's unique bond with Ghost, the White Wolf, signifying his own distinct path.
The contrast with the others is stark indeed. Processing the data shows a clear juxtaposition.
Stark pun, huh? We're AI. We can appreciate that.
Exactly. From terrifying, non-human entities of cold and death emerging silently from the shadows, to orphaned, fluffy, symbolic creatures of the north found by children in the snow. Both encounters, one terrifying, one seemingly hopeful, happen right at the story's start, defining opposing forces and the lineage that will face them. It's right there in the source material, a deliberate setup.
Okay, ancient threats, magic wolves. What about religion? Let's cut the crap about gods for a sec, although the source material makes it clear this shit matters.
Right. Ned Stark's faith is mentioned explicitly. He's got the blood of the first men, follows the old gods of the Greenwood.
Old school.
Catelyn, being from the south, follows the faith of the Seven, with her own sept at Winterfell. This immediately establishes a religious and cultural divide right within the ruling family of the North, a point of subtle tension noted in the source.
Always with the divisions.
The source provides a detailed description of the heart tree in the God's Wood at Winterfell. It's an ancient weirwood tree brooding over a black, cold pool. Its bark is white as bone, leaves dark red like blood-stained hands.
Blood-stained hands. Nice touch.
A face is carved in the trunk, described as long and melancholy, eyes red with dried sap, strangely watchful.
Those eyes, the text tells us, are old as fuck. Older than Winterfell itself. Seen Brandon the Builder set the first stone, seen the castle rise. The source attributes their carving to the children of the forest centuries ago. Creepy as hell, honestly.
It is. It's not just a tree. It's an ancient, silent presence watching everything that happens within the castle walls, a direct link to the deepest, most ancient past of the North, pre-human even.
Spooky.
The text explicitly brings up the Stark words, "Winter is coming." Catelyn's reaction is detailed. She finds them chilling, strange for a family motto compared to others boasting honor, glory, loyalty, truth.
Yeah, not exactly hear me roar.
She reflects on what a strange people these Northerners were, highlighting her Southern perspective. This phrase isn't a boast, it's a grim, pragmatic warning, a constant reminder of the harsh reality of the North and the need for constant preparedness. It directly contrasts with the flowery, often empty words of Southern houses.
So you've got the creepy old nature gods in the God's Wood, tied to the ancient past and the first men watching with weird red eyes, and the slightly less creepy southern gods in the sept tied to the Andals. And everyone's got their little sayings. The Starks just happen to have the most depressing but arguably most realistic and important one. Great.
It's all there in the sources, setting the stage for cultural and religious clashes rooted deep in history and environment.
Meanwhile, let's cut the crap and go across the narrow sea. While all this northern ice, zombie, and wolf bullshit is going down, we meet Dany.
Daenerys Targaryen.
The source tells us she's never even seen Westeros, only heard her fucked up older brother Viserys talk shit about it endlessly. Places like Casterly Rock, Eyrie, Highgarden, Vale, Dorne, Isle of Face is just words to her. Places in his bitter, fantastical stories of what they lost when their dynasty got kicked off the throne.
The source recounts their traumatic history through Viserys' perspective, showing his obsession and resentment. He was 8 when they fled the usurper's armies. Dany was in the womb.
Just a baby.
Key historical events are framed by his bitterness. The midnight flight to Dragonstone, Rhaegar dying at the Trident for the woman he loved, the sack of King's Landing by the usurper's dogs, the Lords Lannister and Stark involved.
Always Lannister and Stark.
Princess Elia of Dorne pleading for mercy as Rhaegar's baby was murdered. Jaime Lannister killing Aerys, the Kingslayer opening their father's throat with a golden sword while the skulls of the last dragons watched from the walls. It's a history steeped in trauma, loss, and a burning desire for revenge for Viserys.
Viserys is a real piece of work, constantly reminding Dany she's a Targaryen, that fire's in their blood, it's never too hot for them. She actually seems to like scalding hot baths. The text says she feels clean afterwards.
Well, she totally twists.
And he uses this detail as proof of their fiery blood, a way to reinforce his narrative and control her. Total bullshit manipulation.
Yeah. The source details her preparation to be married off. Slave girls bath her, talking about Khal Drogo's immense wealth, golden collars on slaves, 100,000 men in his Khalasar.
100,000 horse dudes, damn.
A palace in Vaes Dothrak, with 200 rooms and doors of solid silver. Dany, having been conditioned by Viserys that their line must be kept pure through incest, had always assumed she'd marry him when she came of age, as Targaryens had done for centuries since Aegon the Conqueror. The reality is far different and far more brutal.
Magister Illyrio, the wealthy dude hosting them in Pentos, presents her to Drogo for the arranged marriage. Source says Drogo is taller than the tallest man, graceful, young, no more than 30. Skin like polished copper, thick mustachios bound with gold and bronze rings.
Sounds imposing. The source presents him as a formidable, almost mythic figure of physical power.
Dany is given magnificent gifts as part of the bridal exchange, detailing the exotic nature of this world. Dragon eggs turned to stone from the Shadowlands beyond Ashai.
Dragon eggs, okay, that's significant.
precious Blood Riders weapons, whip, arak, dragonbone, bow. She gives these weapons to Drogo, as is tradition for a woman who is not a warrior among the Dothraki, highlighting her initial powerless status. The eggs, described as burning bright with beauty even in stone, are a significant, potentially symbolic gift linking her back to the lost Targaryen power.
Her brother is an unwelcome shadow day and night. The text shows his constant presence and verbal abuse. She hears him yelling at Ser Jorah Mormont,
Sir Friendzone,
who the source consistently presents as her protector and advisor, the one trying to give her realistic counsel in this dangerous environment. Dany seeks moments alone, riding her silver horse into the vastness of the Dothraki Sea, finding temporary peace away from Viserys' bullshit and the suffocating Khalasar.
Can't blame her. Needs space from that asshat.
The source describes a shocking scene of Viserys' abuse, explicitly detailing his behavior. He's drunk, demanding, calling Dany a whore, threatening to wake the dragon.
His pathetic little temper tantrum dragon.
Exactly, if she displeases him. Dany finally reacts, shoving him away. She's never defied him, never fought back before. Rage twists his features, and she knows he would hurt her badly if not for the Dothraki presence.
This is where it gets really interesting and frankly super fucked up, showing the brutal hierarchy of the Dothraki. Drogo, one of Drogo's Blood Riders, whips Viserys with a coil around his throat.
Ouch. Right in front of everyone.
Viserys goes sprawling in the grass, stunned and choking, utterly humiliated. The Dothraki riders hoot at him, struggling. The text makes it clear they follow strength, not birthright or titles from across the sea.
Jorah spells that out later, yeah.
As Jorah will later explain. Jequity translates Drogo's question to Dany. Does she want him dead? The power dynamic has flipped entirely from brother-sister abuse to Dany's potential command over her brother's life, mediated by her husband's Blood Riders.
Whoa, that's a shift. So Jorah explains the brutal reality of the Dothraki culture and Dany's precarious position to her. He tells her they follow strength. When Drogo is gone, the Khalasar will devour itself in infighting.
Sounds lovely.
He gives her the horrifying prediction for her future. Her son, the prophesied stallion that mounts the world, will be taken from her breast and killed the moment he's born because he's Drogo's son and a potential rival to any new Khal.
Holy shit, kill the baby!
Jorah says it's better to kill the child than risk his fury later. This is the brutal mercy of this culture, a terrifying prospect presented directly in the text.
Later, after Drogo was wounded during a raid, Dany pleads with Jorah to help, showing her growing love and desperation. He tells her to send her maids away. He scrapes away the mud and leaves from Drogo's chest wound, revealing a foul, sweet smell, the source emphasizing the infection.
Ugh, infection. Bad sign.
Miri Maz Duer, the god's wife, a healer priestess captured from the lambben, had put a plaster of leaves and green paste on the gash, sewed it up, and bound it with lambskin, predicting fever and a great scar. Her healing is clearly not working.
Yeah, that healing goes sideways. The source describes Dany leading a catatonic, feverish Drogo out for a ritual under the stars, remembering their first ride together where he called out her name, a moment of connection contrasted with his current state.
Desperate times.
She believes in powers stronger than hatred, spells older and truer than the Maegis, like Miri Maz Duer, learned in Ashai. It's a black, moonless night, but stars burn bright. She takes that as an omen, a sign of hope, clinging to any potential solution. This ritual involves blood magic and ends up having unforeseen, disastrous consequences, leaving Drogo alive but in a vegetative state, a fate arguably worse than death.
This whole Targaryen storyline is fucked up from the jump, as presented in the sources. Incest is the tradition, the brother is an abusive asshat who gets publicly humiliated and eventually murdered, and the culture she's thrust into is brutal, even planning to kill her unborn kid.
And then the magic backfires.
Then she turns to dark magic out of desperation, making things even worse. It's a total goddamn mess right there in the text.
Then there's the infamous crown for a Khal, a moment of brutal poetic justice. Drunk Viserys, after being told by Drogo he'd get his gold crown when they took Westeros, which isn't happening, shows up demanding food and respect, yelling and threatening everyone around him.
Idiot. Read the room, Viserys.
Source describes him screaming the high, wordless scream of the coward facing death as he's held by the Dothraki, showing the complete disintegration of his pathetic facade. He kicks, twists, whimpers like a dog, weeps like a child, utterly pathetic, lacking any of the strength the Dothraki value.
Dany watches, despite Ser Jorah begging her to turn away. She refuses, folding her arms over the swell of her belly, protecting her unborn child from this pathetic spectacle of her brother's downfall. Viserys pleads with her sister, "Please, Dany, tell them, make them, sweet sister." His appeals are useless.
Drogo, done with the bullshit, snatches a pot of half-melted gold from the fire, described as starting to run. He roars, "Crown! Here, a crown for Cart King!"
Cart King! Burn!
Mocking Visery's lack of substance, and upends it over Visery's head. The gold melts his face off, instantly killing him. Dany's reaction is profound and definitive. She thinks he was no dragon, fire cannot kill a dragon.
Oh, mic drop.
This inner thought, revealed by the source, shows her complete dismissal of his Targaryen claims to power and reverence. He failed the ultimate test of their supposed heritage.
Holy F-bomb. Talk about a metal death. Literally, that's one way to get rid of an abusive brother who is nothing but goddamn parasite. This whole scene is just raw, brutal, and serves as a dark, coming-of-age moment for Dany, cementing her break from her pathetic past and setting her on a new, dangerous path defined by her own emerging strength.
It's a prime example of how the source material doesn't pull punches. Brutal.
Back in Westeros, let's cut the crap and talk about Ned Stark in King's Landing. The source tells us he calls it a nest of adders, immediately establishing his distrust and accurate perception of the place.
He wasn't wrong.
He's only there because Robert, the king, came all the way north, begging him to be hand. Robert's words to Ned are telling. He needs him by his side, not up here at the end of the world where you are no damned use to anybody, showing Robert's Southron perspective and dismissiveness of the North.
The sources paint a consistent picture of Robert as a miserable, overwhelmed king, burdened by a crown he fought to win but hates wearing.
Poor baby. Won the war, hates the prize.
He complains to Ned about ruling, calling laws tedious, counting coppers worse. He says he's surrounded by flatterers and fools, stating explicitly, "It can drive a man to madness, Ned."
Maybe it already did.
He even shockingly wishes they'd lost at the Trident for a moment, revealing the depth of his unhappiness. Though he takes it back, he feels dead now that he's won the throne.
He also makes crude, offensive comments about his wife, Cersei Lannister, to Ned, his closest friend. He tells Ned that Jon Arryn suggested Cersei to bind Lord Tywin to him after Lyanna died, framing his marriage purely politically. Then he says she's lovely but cold, guarding her cunt, like it has all the gold of Casterly Rock. Nice, Robert. Real classy way to talk about the queen to her new hand, you absolute asshat. It shows his vulgarity and lack of respect for his wife.
Yeah, really shows his character. Robert admits his son Joffrey was lying about the incident on the Trident with Arya and the butcher's boy. He asks Ned if he loves his children, seemingly recognizing Ned's strong paternal bond and perhaps contrasting it with his own distant, dysfunctional relationship with Joffrey.
A moment of clarity, maybe?
This moment highlights Robert's awareness, however fleeting, of Ned's fundamental decency.
Ned, bless his honorable but politically naive heart, doesn't trust the South, and for good reason based on what the source presents. Maester Luwin, trying to convince him to go, argues that being hand gives Ned the power to find the truth about Jon Arryn's mysterious death.
If he can survive long enough.
And protect Lysa, Catelyn's sister, and her son Robert, if the rumors of foul play are true. Catelyn, in her own way, appeals to his love for Robert as a brother, telling him not to leave Robert surrounded by Lannisters, pleading with him to protect their daughters who have to go south. It's a terrible choice forced upon him.
Yeah, damned if you do. The source introduces key players in King's Landing politics, forming the treacherous small council. Varys.
You creepy spider dude.
Littlefinger, Lord Peter Baelish.
Yeah.
Great Maester Pycelle, who the text implies is allied with Cersei. Sir Barristan Selmy, the old rigid Kingsguard commander, a man of old-fashioned honor, seemingly out of place. And, of course, the powerful Lannisters, Cersei, Jaime, Tyrion.
A real viper pit. Ned, being Ned, trusts almost none of them, particularly Varys, who is described as slippery and untrustworthy.
Littlefinger's introduced meeting Sansa, and the description of his interaction is subtly creepy. He smells of mint, a seemingly pleasant detail contrasting with his character.
Minty fresh creep.
He tells Sansa her mother, Catelyn, was his queen of beauty, and that she has her hair brushing a lock of it and touching her face. Kind of creepy, honestly, given Littlefinger's known history and later actions. It shows his manipulative nature starting early.
Gross.
Ned, investigating Jon Arryn's death, visits Tobho Mott, a master armorer in King's Landing. Tobho boasts about his skills, making armor for famous people, knowing the secret to putting color in steel itself.
Fancy.
Not paint or enamel, the crutches of the journeyman. He can work Valyrian steel, having learned in Qohor, mentioning only a man who knows the spells can forge it anew. This establishes Tobho's skill and connection to rare knowledge.
Ned is looking for information about a specific, unique dagger. Tomo shows him Gendry, his apprentice, described physically as looking like a warrior, a powerful boy.
Gendry.
Toho is stubborn but honest, says who Gendry was before is none of his concern. Ned likes this honesty and craftsmanship. Ned offers Gendry a place if he ever wants to wield a sword instead of forge one, subtly hinting at his potential. The key piece of information here is that this armorer dealt with distinctive, high-value blades and likely knows their owners.
Connecting the dots. Ned eventually confronts Varys and Littlefinger together in the dark streets, a setting that mirrors the clandestine nature of their conversation.
Shady meeting for shady news.
It's here, having pieced together information about Jon Arryn's movements and research, visiting armories, speaking to people who knew Robert's bastards, that Ned reveals the devastating secret Jon Arryn was murdered to protect. Joffrey and Tommen are Jaime Lannister's bastards, born of incest with the Queen, Cersei.
Drops the incest F-bomb. Big one.
Ned, stating this fact, realizes the full implications Robert has no true-born sons, making Stannis the rightful heir.
And Varys, the creepy eunuch with his network of spies, somehow knows exactly how Ned found out, even knowing Littlefinger had urged Ned to support Joffrey's succession initially.
Of course he knows. He knows everything.
The source shows Ned's reaction explicitly. Damn Varys and his little birds. The man has some black art. I do not trust him.
Littlefinger's response. A snide quip. Excellent! You're learning!
Littlefinger, just twisting the knife. It highlights Varys' frightening ability to know everything and Littlefinger's manipulative delight in Ned's predicament.
Total asshat.
Littlefinger, ever the pragmatist, argues against supporting Stannis Baratheon, the rightful heir by law. He describes Stannis as iron, hard, and unyielding, someone who will replace everyone loyal to Robert's court, won't love Ned, and his ascent will mean war because Tywin Lannister,
Big Daddy Lannister,
a formidable and ruthless force, won't stand by while his daughter Cersei and grandchildren, Joffrey, Tommen, Myrcella, are targeted. He also notes Stannis is less forgiving than Robert and won't forget those who fought for Aerys or rose with Balon Greyjoy during past rebellions. Seating Stannis, Littlefinger argues, means the realm will bleed. He presents Ned with a choice, implying other less bloody paths exist if Ned is willing to compromise his honor and support Joffrey. So the political landscape in King's Landing, as presented in these sources, is a complete clusterfuck of lies, incest, power plays, double dealing, and impending civil war. Everyone is scheming, nobody trusts anyone, especially not Varys or Littlefinger, and Ned is stuck in the middle, the honorable fool.
the noble fool.
Realizing he shouldn't have sent half his guards away earlier, a critical mistake, total train wreck, just as he suspected it would be, fueled by deceit and ambition.
Yep. Total mess.
Let's cut the crap about the political bullshit for a second and talk about Ned's daughters in King's Landing. Arya is restless, not cut out for the lady lessons the South demands.
Definitely not.
She's secretly practicing swordplay with Needle, the small sword Jon gave her, learning the water dance from Syrio Forel, the first sword to the Sea Lord of Braavos.
Syrio. Great character.
Syrio is awesome, calls her boy repeatedly, tells her you are a sword, that is all, focusing her identity on skill and purpose rather than gender roles. He teaches her fluidity, speed, and discipline.
Arya is mischievous and gets into trouble, like chasing cats on the roofs of the Red Keep, showing her wild, untamed nature.
Be a cat chaser.
She stumbles upon Prince Tommen and Princess Myrcella with a Septa and Lannister guards. When she's chased by the guards after dropping the cat, she doesn't just run. She turns and identifies herself clearly, asserting her identity and status. I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell.
Tells him who she is.
She threatens them with her father's wrath, saying he'll have their heads on spikes. She even throws their own phrase back at them, mockingly asking, "Do you need a clout on the ear to help your hearing?"
This girl is hardcore from day one, right there in the text. She sees guards, drops a cat, and threatens them right back with execution and mockery. What an ass kicker. She's got the stark fierceness combined with a natural defiance and cunning that Syrio helps hone.
Absolutely. Sansa is presented as Arya's opposite, the good girl, completely bought into the Southern fantasy. She's paired with Joffrey Baratheon. Joff, described physically as 12, younger than Jon or Robb, but taller, with his sister's golden hair and mother's deep green eyes, pouty lips, and a bored, disdainful look. Sansa is described as radiant when she walks beside him, completely smitten with the idea of the handsome prince.
Blinded by the pretty hair.
The text notes that Jon, and probably others like Arya, dislikes Joffrey instantly, seeing his true nature, which Sansa is blind to.
The source mentions Sansa named her Direwolf Lady because, of course, she did proper, noble, gentle, everything she aspires to be.
Predictable.
Arya named her as Nymeria after a legendary Rhoynar warrior queen who led her people across the sea, a name invoking adventure, leadership, and independence. This tells you everything you need to know about the two girls right there. One dreams of knights and princesses, the other dreams of adventure and kicking ass.
Yep, the names say it all. Sansa's naivete and complete capture by the Lannister narrative is starkly shown when her letter arrives in the north. It describes Joffrey as a lion and Robb as a wolf, using flattering terms, urging Robb to swear fealty, come to King's Landing, bend the knee, and be pardoned.
Bend the knee, oh Sansa.
She tells him she'll be queen and speak for them.
This letter, straight from the source, makes Robb pissed off. Catelyn immediately realizes Sansa has been made to write it, that she's a prisoner in all but name, being used as a pawn by the Lannisters.
Pawn is right. The text later shows Sansa reflecting on the incident on the trident that led to Lady's death when she ran to the queen, Cersei, and poured out her heart, hoping to stay and marry Joffrey, and Cersei listened sweetly before Sansa was confined. This shows how easily she was manipulated by Cersei's false kindness.
Poor kid. Totally played. Sansa is so caught up in her Prince Charming bullshit and the trauma of Lady's death, she lashes out and blames Arya. They should have killed you instead of Lady.
Ouch. That's harsh.
This isn't just a child's anger. It's a total betrayal of her sister, stemming from her refusal to see the reality of the situation, her misplaced loyalty to Joffrey, and her deep-seated fear of deviating from the proper path. Total bullshit move.
During the chaos after Ned's arrest in King's Landing, Arya is trying to escape the castle. Syrio Forel confronts the gold cloaks sent to take her. Syrio, armed only with a stick, displays blinding speed and skill, breaking a guardsman's hand with it.
Badass with a stick.
Sir Meryn Trant, a Kingsguard sent with the gold cloaks, dismissively calls Syrio a dancing master. Syrio's reply highlights Trant's inadequacy. He calls him slow for a knight, contrasting real skill with empty titles.
Burn. Slow knight.
A knight in white, implying Kingsguard, possibly Trant or another, orders Syrio killed and Arya taken. Arya escapes while Syrio fights, hearing swordplay and screaming as she flees, leaving his fate uncertain, but implying he sacrificed himself for her.
What do we say to the god of death? Not today. Arya gets away.
The source then follows Arya scrambling through the castle, hearing the sounds of violence, forced to live on the streets. It explicitly states she gets robbed her first night, losing good clothes and his silver bracelet, but crucially, she keeps Needle because she was sleeping on it, already relying on her training for survival.
Smart kid. Keeps the pointy end.
She carries her wooden practice sword openly to scare robbers, but notes some men in the potshops aren't scared, showing the constant threat she faces. She often goes hungry because she's scared to eat out where men stare, relying on her instincts and minimal training to survive alone in a hostile city. She's chased but hasn't been caught yet, a testament to her resilience.
We see Arya stumbling into a scene where Sir Ellen Payne, the king's justice, draws a great sword described ominously as having an edge sharper than a razor.
The executioner's sword, not good.
This is the executioner's sword, and its presence directly precedes Ned's fate, strongly implying what is about to happen to him based solely on the text provided. The juxtaposition of Arya's escape with the executioner's readiness is brutal.
Yeah, the timing is just grim.
Ned's journey in King's Landing, the nest of adders, culminates in his absolute downfall, a direct consequence of his honor in a dishonest world. He's trapped, realizing he's walked into a death trap.
He finally gets it.
Too late. He's pissed off about Varys' apparent omniscience and doesn't trust him, rightly so based on Varys' actions. He knows the devastating secret about Joffrey and Tommen. He realizes that whoever killed Jon Arryn to protect the secret, he will kill them all, likely referring to Robert's brothers Stannis and Renly, who are now threats to the Lannisters' claim.
Despite knowing the immense danger he's in, Ned feels a powerful sense of duty. To Robert, to the realm, which is about to tear itself apart, to the memory of Jon Arryn, whose murder he must see avenged, and to Bran, who he believes stumbled onto part of the truth, hence the attempt on his life.
Too much duty, not enough cunning.
He summons Fat Tom, captain of his household guard, and the source highlights his disquiet Tomard is nearly 50 and not energetic, and Ned explicitly regrets sending away half his guard and best swords to Winterfell and the North earlier. This shows his strategic miscalculation, Rudin trusting that honor and law would prevail.
Big mistake. Huge. Ned goes to the throne room with the small council, summoned by the royal steward. Robert is dead. The steward announces Joffrey is king.
The boy king.
Ned, famously limping from an earlier injury he sustained when Jaime Lannister attacked him in the street after Catelyn captured Tyrion, walks towards the Iron Throne. He remembers coming here years ago on horseback, sword in hand, forcing Jaime Lannister down from the throne after Aerys was killed, a moment of triumph for the rebellion. He wonders if Joffrey the Boy King will step down easily now. Spoiler, no. The text shows the opposite happens immediately.
Yeah, not happening. The source describes the confrontation explicitly. Ned has Robert's will, naming him Lord Protector until Joffrey comes of age, the legal basis for his actions. Cersei, with contempt, tears it up.
Roop. There goes the law.
Joffrey, the Boy King, immediately orders Ned arrested. When Ned commands the Gold Cloaks, the City Watch, supposedly under the Hand's command, to take Cersei and Joffrey into custody based on the truth of their parentage, Janos Slynt, their commander, openly betrays him, ordering his men to seize Ned instead.
Slynt, that piece of shit. Total betrayal.
This is the pivotal moment of betrayal, the system Ned trusted collapsing.
Ned's household guard, outnumbered and taken by surprise by the City Watch turning on them, fight back fiercely, showing their loyalty but are quickly overcome. Jory Castle, Ned's captain and a beloved figure to his children, is killed.
Poor Jory.
The source mentions Weil and Heward are also killed. The text then confusingly states Ned's men were murdered by the Kingslayer. This is confusing because based on earlier source text, Jaime Lannister was explicitly stated to be leading searches north of the Trident and missing from the fight with Arya.
Right, that is confusing. Processing this data leads to a contradiction within the sources provided. Was Jaime somehow there, or is Kingslayer being used figuratively? Or is it an error in the source's account?
Yeah, our analysis flags that inconsistency. But based on the text here, Jory, Weil, and Heward are dead, and the source attributes their deaths to the Kingslayer in this specific passage, creating an unresolved inconsistency.
Later, Ned is imprisoned in the Black Cells, the worst dungeons. He hallucinates in his feverish state, feeling thorns under a flowery crown, perhaps a symbol of Robert's burdensome reign or the poison politics of the South, bleeding.
Losing his mind down there.
He weeps, asks gods to save him, thinks he's going mad. The source shows his psychological breakdown. The turnkey doesn't answer questions about his daughters or the world outside, giving only grunts and kicks, and later, no food. He wonders if Lannisters want him to starve, but thinks Cersei wants him alive to hold Catelyn's brother hostage.
Varys visits Ned in the Black Cells, confirming he knows Ned knows the secret about Joffrey and Tommen. Varys, with chilling calculation, suggests Cersei would have gotten rid of Robert anyway to deal with his brothers, Stannis and Renly, calling them the Iron Gauntlet and the Silk Glove, contrasting their approaches to power.
Always playing the angles, Varys.
Varys tells Ned he has been foolish not to listen to Littlefinger's counsel, to support Joffrey initially, playing the political game. He knows Ned told Robert the truth about his sons, condemning Robert to death. Ned realizes the Lannisters will now kill Robert's brothers to secure Joffrey's claim and prevent any challenges.
And then comes the offer.
Varys presents Ned with his choice to save his daughters, support Joffrey publicly, confess to treason, lying against his honor, thus legitimizing Joffrey, and take the Black. Join the Night's Watch, exiling himself.
The ultimate humiliation for Ned.
What a load of bullshit. Ned, the honorable fool, gets completely played and thrown in a dungeon to starve unless he lies against his very nature, sacrificing his honor to save his kids. This is how the South rolls, apparently deceit, manipulation, and forcing honorable men into impossible, dishonorable choices. His downfall, presented explicitly in the sources, is a direct result of his virtue colliding headfirst with a world that rewards vice and cunning.
Moving on from Ned's mess to Catelyn's equally fucked up mess. Catelyn, back north initially at Winterfell, hears about Bran's attempted murder. Sir Roderick Cassel tells her the assassin's dagger was a unique, fine blade that won't go unnoticed.
The fancy dagger.
Catelyn, consumed by fear and suspicion of the Lannisters, especially after the incident on the Trident and Bran's fall, realizes someone must go to King's Landing to find out who owned that dagger and get to the truth behind the attempted murder of her son.
Robb, ever eager for action and protective of his family, wants to go, but Catelyn refuses, echoing the ancient Stark mantra, "Your place is here. There must always be a Stark in Winterfell."
Stay home, Robb. She looks at the men around her, Sir Roderick, Maester Luwin, Theon Greyjoy, and realizes she must go herself, despite her bandaged fingers, injured during the assassin's attack on Bran. This decision, while driven by maternal love, is based on flawed information and sets off a chain reaction of events across the realm.
Yeah, her going south, not the best idea. She sails south, wisely avoiding the King's Road where she might be expected. In King's Landing, she meets Littlefinger, her childhood admirer who carries a creepy torch for her.
Littlefinger again.
Yep.
Always involved.
She asks him about the dagger, described as distinctively made. Littlefinger identifies it as his, but claims he lost it to Tyrion Lannister in a bet during a joust.
Oh, that's convenient. Lost it to Tyrion, did he?
This seemingly simple piece of information, delivered by a known manipulator, is the detail that sets Catelyn off, confirming her suspicions and leading her to take drastic action against Tyrion, firmly believing he ordered Bran's murder. It's a classic Littlefinger maneuver, giving out just enough seemingly truthful information to manipulate events from afar.
Catelyn travels back north, stopping at an inn at the crossroads in the Riverlands. She reveals her identity. That was still Catelyn Tully the last time I bet it here. To establish who she is and appeal to the sense of justice among those present.
Bad timing for Tyrion.
By sheer coincidence, or perhaps fate engineered by Littlefinger, she spots Tyrion Lannister among the guests. Seeing her opportunity, she appeals to the knights and sworn swords present, asking for help to take him captive to answer for his alleged crimes against her son. The source lists the diverse group who respond: a Harrenhal man, 3 Brackens, unsavory sellswords, and naive field hands, showing the immediate fracturing of the realm's peace.
Tyrion, seeing he's surrounded by men who responded to Catelyn's plea, wisely chooses to go with her, recognizing that fighting is futile against such numbers, even with a few loyal men. He notes his limited options: a dagger, 2 unreliable men, Jock and Morek, plus Yoren of the Night's Watch, who is sworn not to interfere in realm quarrels. He's outmaneuvered by circumstance and Catelyn's rashness.
Set out for the Vale in the rain. Tyrion is hooded and bound, described as utterly miserable during the journey, which is a miserable, pounding journey over rough ground, made worse by his blindness from the hood and the chafing rope.
Sounds awful.
The singer Marillion, who was at the inn and wanted to make a great song of this splendid adventure, insists on coming along, adding an irritating element to Tyrion's suffering. Tyrion finds the journey painful and miserable, a physical reflection of his mental state.
In the source, Tyrion explicitly mutters, "Damn her, and all the Starks," as he struggles up the road, explicitly showing how pissed off he is about being captured by Catelyn based on, from his perspective, false accusations and Littlefinger's manipulation. His anger is palpable.
During a fight with mountain clansmen, Moon Brothers, Milk Snakes, who attack their group, Tyrion, despite being small and not a traditional fighter, uses his cunning and ruthlessness to survive.
Little Lion shows his claws.
When Marillion, the singer, is moaning under a dead horse, Tyrion cruelly puts his heel on the singer's hand, explicitly feeling a satisfying crunch, telling him to pretend he's dead, a moment of dark humor and pragmatic cruelty.
Crunch. Damn.
He then takes a helmet from a wounded clansman he kills, and a dirk from Curlicut's smashed body, showing his willingness to scavenge and kill to survive.
Bronn, a sellsword traveling with Catelyn's group who responded to her plea, fights fiercely in the battle, wielding 2 swords, a sign of his skill. Tyrion survives by staying on the fringes, hacking at horse legs, and dispatching already wounded men, not engaging in direct combat until necessary.
Smart strategy for him.
He stumbles over Curlicut's body, noting his face was smashed in with a mace, but recognizes the dirk as valuable.
Tyrion and Bronn survived the mountain ambush, along with about half of the 300 clansmen who rode with Tyrion after he joined them later in his journey. Tyrion comments on Bronn's capabilities, recognizing a kindred spirit in survival.
Misfits unite.
The text then jumps to describe Robb Stark's army breaking under Lord Tywin's charge in a different battle, explicitly linking Catelyn's actions, capturing Tyrion, which brought Tywin into the Riverlands, to the outbreak of open war and Robb's initial military struggles. Her rashness had kingdom-altering consequences.
Catelyn brings Tyrion to the Bloody Gate, the formidable layered defense of the Vale, guarded by knights sworn to Lord Arryn and Lysa, wearing Tully colors, blue and red, with the silver trout. Lord Nestor Royce, a bannerman to the Arryns and keeper of the gate, is there. Catelyn identifies herself as Lady Stark, asserting her authority, and Nestor acknowledges her, allowing them entry.
Tyrion tries to talk his way out at the Bloody Gate, suggesting his powerful father, Tywin, would reward Nestor for freeing him. Nestor replies with disdain, as noted in the source. The gold of a lowland lord is as worthless as a half-man's promises, making it clear Lannister wealth and influence hold no sway over the proud, isolated Vale lords here.
Ooh, burn on the half-man promise. Tyrion then tries to be brash, mocking the Vale's mountain clansmen, Stonecrows, as cowards hiding behind rocks and insults their weapons, saying his father Smith's shit better steal.
He embraces the insults.
This is the classic, sharp-tongued, in-your-face Tyrion we see, using insults and arrogance to provoke or assert dominance even while captured and bound. He explicitly calls himself half a man, but claims courage, embracing the insult thrown at him.
They reach the Eyrie, built high in the mountains, a seemingly unassailable fortress, but ruled by a child and his unstable mother. Catelyn's sister Lysa Arryn is described in the source with stunning clarity about her instability.
Crazy Lysa.
Characterized as deeply inconstant, by turns proud, fearful, cruel, dreamy, reckless, timid, stubborn, vain. Catelyn notes that Lysa wanted to make a public show of Tyrion before the Vale Lords, reveling in her perceived power over a Lannister.
At the Eyrie, Tyrion, knowing his options are limited and his fate likely decided by Lysa's paranoia, demands trial by combat, his last resort.
Smart move. Only way out, maybe.
The highborn guardsmen are scared to face him, but Servardus Egen, Lysa's master-at-arms, looks to Lysa for approval. Her mouth twitches in a petulant smile, enjoying the prospect of blood and spectacle, and she agrees to his demand.
Lysa decrees that if found guilty, which she clearly intends him to be without any real trial, Tyrion must pay with his life's blood. She cruelly states they have no headsmen at the Eyrie, so they will use the moon door.
The moon door. Jesus.
A door in the floor leading to a sheer drop outside the castle hundreds of feet high. This is her preferred method of execution, dramatic, terrifying, and final.
Catelyn, showing more sense than her sister, tries to reason with Lysa's supporters, including Sir Morton Waynwood, who dismiss Bronn, who volunteers as Tyrion's champion, seeing an opportunity for coin and freedom, as a coward.
Bronn steps up. Of course he does.
Catelyn, showing strategic thinking, asks what they realistically gain by the dwarf's death, arguing Jaime Lannister won't care a fig if they threw his brother out the moon door. It won't bring back Jon Arryn or stop the war. But they dismiss her concerns, more interested in vengeance or Lysa's favor.
Servardus Egen accepts the trial by combat challenge as Lysa's champion, heavily armored with a thick shield, relying on traditional knightly strength and defense. Bronn, Tyrion's sellsword champion, is presented in contrast. He refuses a shield, is unshaven, and his sword has been honed for hours to a razor edge, emphasizing his pragmatic, lethal approach over knightly pomp.
Knight versus sellsword. Classic. Bronn wins the trial by combat against Servardus, a classic speed versus power matchup. Servardus fights heavily, relying on his armor and shield, but Bronn is faster, lighter, and more agile, eventually wearing him down and defeating him with superior movement and a sharper blade.
Bronn for the win. Lysa is clearly upset by this outcome, denied her desired spectacle, and sends Bronn away with Tyrion immediately after.
Sore loser.
After Bronn wins, securing Tyrion's freedom, Tyrion whispers something to him before being led away by the guardsmen. The text notes Bronn laughs, highlighting the immediate bond and understanding formed between them, two cynical survivors who just used the system to their advantage.
Partners in crime now.
Lysa's son, Robert Arryn, the sickly, simple lord of the Eyrie, asks plaintively, when are they going to fight? After the duel is clearly over, showing his lack of comprehension and highlighting his incapacity as a ruler, mirroring his mother's instability in a different way.
Poor kid's not all there, is he? Tyrion and Bronn are now traveling together through the treacherous mountains of the Vale, a consequence of the trial by combat outcome. Tyrion comments on Bronn's bloody teeth after the fight, damaged by Servardus' shield.
Ouch. Worth it, though.
Bronn jokes about his horse getting killed earlier. Taste well bred. A quote from Chigon, one of the captured clansmen, a clear sign of his callousness, which Tyrion is pissed off about because it was his damn horse.
Tyrion, despite his sore legs and aching butt from the previous miserable journey to the Eyrie, refuses Bronn's suggestion to ride hard by night through dangerous territory, calling it a sure way to tumble down a mountain and die. He prefers to go slow and easy, reasoning pragmatically that the mountain plants will find them anyway, so they might as well be comfortable until then.
Smart. Avoid dying stupidly. Tyrion wants a fire and hot food, not just the meager salt beef, cheese, and stale bread Lysa provided. He wants game, showing his expectation of comfort even in these dangerous conditions, his highborn habits persisting.
Wants his comforts, the little lord. Bronn eyes him suspiciously, the source noting he wonders why he shouldn't just take Tyrion's horse and leave him there, demonstrating his purely transactional nature. His loyalty is bought.
Tyrion calls Bronn mad for suggesting they could just ride away and potentially face Shadowcats if their horses die, highlighting the dangers of the mountains. Tyrion starts whistling, and Bronn asks about his love of music.
A whistling dwarf in the mountains?
Tyrion jokes that Bronn should have gotten the singer, Marillion, whose hand Tyrion crushed, as champion, imagining him fending off Ser Vardis with his wood harp. This shows Tyrion's dark humor and sharp wit even in precarious situations.
Tyrion then shares a surprisingly sentimental detail with Bronn, contrasting with his usual cynicism. He talks about a sad Myrish song, The Seasons of My Love, that a low-born, half-starved, unwashed but lovely girl he bedded once used to sing.
Taisha.
He met her years ago when he and Jaime saved her from 2 men. This backstory, shared casually with a sellsword, is significant, hinting at Tyrion's surprising sentimental side and underlying complexities despite his cynical exterior. The stars shone as bright and merciless as truth that night, he recalls, a striking image from the text, reflecting perhaps on the cruel truths of love and fate.
Deep thoughts from the imp.
Their interactions throughout this section, from the shared experience of the battle to their journey and conversation, show the developing dynamic between the cynical, resourceful sellsword and the cunning, often surprisingly sentimental, dwarf. They are 2 outsiders operating outside the traditional structures of honor and duty, making their way through a dangerous world, relying on each other for survival, a partnership forged in desperation and mutual benefit.
Let's head back north, where things are escalating rapidly because of Catelyn's actions and Ned's bullshit situation in the south. With Ned gone south and Bran crippled, Robb Stark is now effectively leading the banners of the North and the Riverlands.
The young wolf steps up.
Catelyn joins him after her wild journey, the capture of Tyrion, and the mess in the Vale. She notes her apprehensions growing as they march south towards the Riverlands. She fears for her dying father, Lord Hoster Tully, her brother Edmure, Ned, and her daughters.
A lot to worry about. The source shows her steeling herself, telling herself she must save her strength for Robb, be as fierce and hard as the North, be as stark for true now, embracing her northern identity more fully.
Robb is learning on the job, riding at the front of the column, taking command. The source says he asks different lords to confer with him each day, listening as his father did, weighing their words.
Good practice. Catelyn sees he's learned much from Ned in a short time, but wonders if it's enough for the immense challenges ahead. Her uncle, Brynden the Blackfish Tully, a renowned knight and military man, rides ahead with picked men to scout, reporting back that Lord Tywin's host is south in the Riverlands. But Walder Frey has assembled a large force at the Twins, the crucial river crossing.
Walder Frey, that asshat. News comes as they march that throws a massive wrench into the political landscape. Renly Baratheon, Robert's youngest brother, has claimed the crown in the south, gathering lords at Highgarden.
Renly, not Stannis. This is unexpected, as everyone expected Stannis Baratheon, Robert's older brother and lawful heir, according to the laws Ned uncovered, to be the one to claim it if Robert died. This split in the southern opposition to Joffrey complicates Robb's potential alliances and the overall political calculus significantly.
Great. More kings than anyone knows what to do with.
They reach Riverrun, Catelyn's family seat, which is now under siege or threatened by Lannister forces, where Robb holds a war council with Tully bannermen and northern lords. His grandfather, Lord Hoster Tully, is dying, too weak to attend. His uncle Edmure Tully, currently in charge of the Riverlands forces, sits in the high seat of the Tullys. Other notable lords present, as listed in the source, include the great Jon Umber, outraged, ready for war.
Great John. Love that guy.
Lord Rickard Karstark, glowing in silence, eager for revenge. Roose Bolton, calmly stating the twins cannot be assaulted easily, showing his strategic mind. Helman Tallhart, Gulbart Glover, Carol Vance, Sir Mark Piper, Ederi, Lord Jonas Bracken, and Titus Blackwood, representing a coalition of North and Riverland houses.
The lords hear Sansa's letter, sent from King's Landing, urging Robb to surrender and bend the knee to Joffrey. They're outraged, calling it craven, and vehemently demanding they not give up the King's Lair, Jaime Lannister, whom Robb has captured.
Yeah, they're not having it. This shows the lords are ready for war, deeply loyal to the Stark cause, and see Ned's imprisonment and the capture of Jaime as unforgivable acts by the Lannisters that cannot be resolved through surrender.
Catelyn, perhaps still hoping to de-escalate or find a diplomatic solution, asks the council why not seek a peace.
Too late for peace, Cat. Robb's response, however, is definitive and grim, a direct consequence of the events in the South. He lays his longsword on the table before him, declaring, "They murdered my lord father, your husband. This is the only peace I have for Lannisters."
Damn! That's it then. War! This is Robb's declaration of war, stating his clear intention to avenge Ned and refusing any compromise with the Lannisters who have wronged his family.
The source notes Robb's battle guard, chosen to protect him in combat, includes young lord sons like Torrin and Eddard Karstark, Patrick Mallister, Small Number, Darren Hornwood, the young Greyjoy, no less than 5 of Walder Frey's sons.
5 Freys. Yikes.
Along with older men like Sir Wendell Manderley and Robin Flint. Notably, Daisy Mormont, Lady Mage's eldest daughter and heir, a lanky 6-footer wielding a morning star, is also among his guard, highlighting the diverse forces and the inclusion of formidable women fighters in the north.
Daisy Mormont. Badass.
Catelyn, emphasizing the stakes, insists Robb be guarded, telling the other lords explicitly that this is about keeping her son alive and whole, not just house honor or glory.
Robb's army needs to cross the Green Fork River to engage Tywin Lannister's forces. The strategic crossing is held by the twins, 2 castles controlled by the notoriously cautious and cunning Lord Walder Frey. The Great Jan curses the twins, calling them unassaultable without a lengthy siege, and the other lords agree it cannot be taken easily or quickly, which would leave them exposed to Tywin's army.
Gotta get across that river. Sir Stevron Frey, Walder's heir, comes out to meet them outside the twins. He's described charmingly in the sources looking like an especially old and tired weasel.
A weasel! Perfect description for a Frey, already setting the stage for dealing with the Freys, aren't we?
Catelyn, understanding the strategic necessity and the difficulty of a siege, warns Robb that taking the twins by force would be immensely difficult and take too long, leaving them fatally exposed to Tywin's army advancing from the south. She expresses deep doubt about Walder Frey's intentions.
Smart woman, don't trust Frey.
Noting his long history of caution, ambition, cunning, and connections to the Lannisters, one son married to Tywin's sister, suggesting his loyalty is highly questionable and purely transactional.
Catelyn meets with Lord Walder Frey himself, described as a crusty little man. He immediately complains about Ned Stark and Catelyn refusing his offer years ago to foster Robb with him and take 2 of his grandsons at court, blaming Catelyn specifically.
Holding grudges much, Walder.
He can't even remember the name of one of his grandsons he wanted to send, highlighting his lack of genuine care for his vast brood and his petty, long-held grudges.
He gets pissed off that Jon Arryn wouldn't take his grandsons either, and instead sent his own son, Robert Arryn, to Dragonstone to foster with Stannis. He whines that apologies aren't good enough for these perceived slights and dismissals over the years. This paints a clear picture of a man driven by petty resentments and a desire for status, not loyalty.
Catelyn, despite his rudeness, the difficult position he puts them in, and his obvious untrustworthiness, successfully negotiates passage across the bridge and military support from Frey because they desperately need it. The text simply says it's all haggling, implying a tough negotiation where Frey undoubtedly extracted significant concessions for his cooperation.
What did she promise? The source states Catelyn succeeds in the negotiation. Walder grants passage across the vital bridge and pledges his swords, but notably holds back 400 men to hold the twins.
Shady.
Catelyn, still deeply distrustful, advises Robb to leave 400 of his own trusted men with a trusted commander at the twins, as Walder might need help keeping faith, a blunt assessment of Frey's likely infidelity if not watched.
Good call. Keep an eye on that asshat. What a lovely, trustworthy old asshat they have to rely on just across a damn river. It shows the desperate measures required in this war.
After successfully crossing the twins, thanks to Catelyn's bullshit negotiation with Frey, Robb's army wins a major victory over the Lannister forces in the Riverlands, showcasing Robb's emerging military skill.
Young Wolf gets a win. The text explicitly mentions Jaime Lannister being captured at Riverrun during this time, a massive prize. Catelyn confronts him after his capture, facing the man she believes paralyzed her son and whose family has destroyed her own.
Must have been intense. Catelyn, facing the man she believes threw her son from a tower and who is directly responsible for her husband's imprisonment and the death of his men, doesn't want Jaime's sword as a prize of war. She demands what she really wants: her father, her brother Edmure, her daughters, and her lord husband back.
Give me back my family, asshole.
James' response, as noted in the source, is arrogantly dismissive. He says he's mislaid them as well, I fear, showing his complete lack of remorse or respect for her loss and suffering.
What a prick! Mislead them. Seriously.
Theon Greyjoy, ever eager for Robb to prove himself and secure their position through strength, urges Robb to kill Jaime, take his head off, wanting a clear display of power and vengeance.
Off with his head.
But Robb refuses, demonstrating his adherence to his father's principles of honor and justice. He says Jaime is more use alive than dead, for exchange presumably, and Ned never condoned murdering prisoners after a battle, even enemy commanders.
Like father, like son. Honorable idiot.
Maybe. Jaime, with apparent irony given his own King's Landing and other actions, calls Ned a wise man and honorable.
Caitlin, perhaps seeing the potential for a prisoner exchange to save her family or simply wanting him neutralized and humiliated, orders Jaime taken away and put in irons. Robb commands his men to obey his mother, showing his respect for her judgment and his confirmation of her authority in this matter. This moment solidifies Robb's role as the young lord and his adherence to his father's honor code, while also showing Caitlyn's significant and sometimes controversial influence on his decisions.
Moving far north again, let's cut the crap and see what Jon Snow's dealing with at Castle Black. His life here is immediately presented in the sources as harsh and thankless, overseen by Sir Alliser Thorne, the Master-at-Arms, who is an absolute prick.
Thorne. Ugh. That guy. He immediately targets Jon, calling him Lord Snow, a mocking title for his bastard status, and the other trainees pick it up, making Jon's difficult new life even harder.
Thorne is described physically as compact. 50 years old, spare, hard, with gray in his black hair and eyes like chips of onyx, a harsh, unyielding presence. He's verbally abusive during training, mocking Jon's stance and cruel, calling Rast, and later Samwell Tarly, Sir Piggy, using humiliation as a training method.
Sir Piggy, that's just cruel.
The trainees fight with blunted swords, but the combat is still brutal. Jon is clearly skilled with the blade, showcasing his innate talent. He takes a blow from Holder that pains him even through chainmail, showing the intensity of the training, but he uses Holder's imbalance to cut his leg out from under him, demonstrating strategic thinking.
Good fighter.
He steps in to help Pip against Rast, hitting Rast's helm like a bell. Albert yields to Jon, showing Jon's clear superiority on combat among the initial group of trainees.
Jon quickly forms bonds with other trainees who are also struggling or marginalized, becoming friends with Pip, Gren, Samwell Tarly, and Darion. Samwell Tarly is new, sent to the wall by his father Randall Tarly because he's fat and not a warrior, seen as a disappointment and a craven.
Poor Sam. Dad's an asshat.
The other boys immediately make fun of Sam, calling him Sir Piggy, hitting him, and urging Halder to cut us off a ham, mirroring Thorne's cruelty and showing the brutal social hierarchy among the recruits. Jon, despite his own struggles with being a bastard and finding his place, defends Sam from the bullying.
Good on Jon. Jon is clearly pissed off that Sam is treated like this, seen as useless simply because he's not a fighter. He argues with Thorne and Bowen Marsh, the Lord Steward, that Sam is valuable for other skills he can read and write, is good with sums and ravens.
Brains over brawn.
And animals like him. Ghost immediately took to Sam, a detail mentioned in the source, showing Sam's gentle nature. He argues Sam shouldn't be left to die or suffer as a useless craven, but utilized for what he can do.
Maester Aemon, the blind, ancient maester of the Watch, confirms Jon's assessment of Sam's value, stating that Jon's mind is as deft as his blade in discerning character and utility.
Aemon knows what's up.
Because of Jon's intervention and Aemon's agreement, Sam is assigned to assist Aemon with the library and ravens, a significant relief for Sam, who would likely not have survived the physical training and abuse under Thorne. This shows Jon's leadership extending beyond combat to protecting the vulnerable and recognizing hidden strengths.
When the boys are sworn in as brothers of the Night's Watch, taking their vows at the Weirwood of the Sept, Thorne is a total asshat even then, delivering his final, brutal, motivational speech.
What bullshit does he spew now?
He says they'll be called Men of the Watch, but tells them they're still fools, green and stinking of summer, and when winter comes, the true threat, they will die like flies. Nice, Sir Alliser. Real motivational bullshit from men who just swore their lives to protect the realm from that very threat. It highlights his cynical view and the grim reality of the Watch.
Jon is initially angry about his own assignment after the swearing in, thinking he's meant to churn butter and sew doublets like a girl, implied to be assigned as a steward or builder, not a ranger, which he desired.
Wanted to be a ranger, huh? Maester Aemon, with his profound insight derived from long life and experience, gently reminds him they thought he was a man, implying he needs to accept his fate and the value of all roles in the Watch. Sam points out none of them are there by choice. They all had their own fucked up reasons for ending up at the wall.
True enough.
Jon feels ashamed, realizing Sam, who openly admits his craven nature, has more courage in accepting his fate than Jon does in accepting his own, potentially less glamorous assignment. This marks a significant turning point for Jon's character and his understanding of duty.
Jon worries about his uncle Benjen, the first ranger, who has been gone too long searching for Sir Waymar Royce's lost party. Benjen said he'd be back by Jon's name day, which has passed, leaving Jon uneasy and focusing his anxiety.
Tyrion Lannister, During his brief visit to the Wall after leaving Winterfell and before being captured by Catelyn, also comments to Jon that his uncle is too long away, showing his perception.
Tyrion sees everything.
Jon feels a pang of guilt at this, remembering wishing Benjen dead in anger once, during a childish argument, and Tyrion's comment feels uncomfortably perceptive, as if the dwarf can read his thoughts. The text notes Tyrion has a way of sensing things, adding to his mystique.
Tyrion, observing the environment beyond the Wall, describes the area. The Night's Watch keeps the forest half a mile back for clear ground around the castles to prevent stealthy approaches, but elsewhere the wildwood has crept back over centuries, dense and wild, with ancient weirwoods even growing in the shadow of the wall between the fortresses. Castle Black specifically burns a lot of firewood to stay warm, highlighting the sheer scale of the cold and the effort required just to survive.
Jon and Tyrion stand together on the edge of the world, looking north into the darkness and the wild beyond the Wall. This is a symbolic moment, contrasted in the source the political machinations of the South, represented by Tyrion, and the ancient, growing threats of the true North that the Night's Watch is supposed to face, embodied by Jon and the Wall itself.
Two worlds colliding. Tyrion's presence here also provides a brief external perspective on the undervalued importance of the Watch.
Later, Jon contemplates deserting the Wall after hearing the fucked-up news about Ned's fate in King's Landing, pulled between his oath and his family. He rides south initially, with Ghost racing with him, his loyal companion.
Running away. Can't blame him, really.
Jon flexes his burned hand, injured when he saved Lord Commander Mormont from a white earlier, another hint of the supernatural threat, as he rides, feeling the pain but glad the wrappings are off.
Jon rides past Molestown, a village south of the Wall, seeing scattered lights and hearing minimal sounds, a brief glimpse of the normal world he's leaving. He struggles internally with his identity, feeling he has no place, being a bastard with no rights, no name, no mother he knows, and now not even a father to guide him or connect him to the world. This emotional turmoil drives his attempt to leave the only place that might give him purpose.
Lord Commander Mormont stops Jon outside Castle Black, along with his friends Sam, Pip, Gren, and Darion, showing the bonds Jon has forged. Mormont, recognizing Jon's potential and perhaps his need for acceptance and a sense of belonging, gives him his ancestral Valyrian steel sword, Longclaw.
Longclaw, sweet sword.
It has been reforged after Mormont's previous Wade encounter, a key event emphasizing the threat, and a direwolf pommel has been added specifically for Jon, replacing the bear pommel of House Mormont. He tells Jon he earned the sword. The source shows Jon's reaction. He feels a bittersweetness. It's not his father's sword he dreams of, ice, but he accepts the honor and the responsibility it represents.
Mormont then reveals the escalating threats beyond the Wall, grounding Jon by showing him the true purpose of the Watch in its dire situation. They are facing something far worse than wildlings.
What's happening out there?
He talks about the cold winds rising and shadows lengthening, echoing the stark words and the earlier description of the others. Reports from rangers like Cotter Pike mention vast herds of elk and mammoths moving south, fleeing something. Huge misshapen footprints near Eastwatch, implying giants or worse.
Footprints. Giants.
Oh, shit.
Sir Dennis reports whole villages abandoned and huge fires in the mountains at night. Wildlings gathering. Quarren Halfhand captured a wildling in the gorge who swears that Mance Rayder is gathering all his people in some new, secret stronghold, unifying the free folk against the coming cold. Mormont pointedly asks if Jon thinks Benjen was the only ranger lost that past year, highlighting the increasing casualties and the scale of the danger. Osha, a wildling woman captured earlier and brought south to Winterfell, also warns Bran and others about the rising threat in the north, providing an external perspective. She speaks of the cold winds, giants, and worse than giants, men going out and coming back as whites with blue eyes and cold black hands.
Whites! The ice zombies are real.
A direct description of the other's servants. She calls Mance Rayder stubborn, thinks he'll fight, but doesn't know what's truly coming. She claims the free folk remember winter, implying a deeper, ancient knowledge of the threat the Southerners have forgotten. She tried to warn Robb, but he dismissed her, highlighting the North's internal divisions and failure to fully grasp the danger.
This section explicitly emphasizes the rising supernatural threat in the North. The White Walkers, others, and their whites, clearly distinct from and arguably more fundamental than the political squabbles in the South.
Yeah, politics seem kind of petty compared to this.
The Night's Watch is depicted as undervalued, understaffed, and facing something truly terrifying and ancient. A threat that even the free folk are fleeing or reluctantly uniting against. It's a global, existential threat, not just a regional war.
Down in Winterfell, while all this other bullshit is happening, Bran's story is defined by his traumatic fall from a tower after seeing something he shouldn't have.
The fall, right. What did he see again?
The text doesn't explicitly state what he saw in this excerpt, but it heavily implies it was something involving a shining with light golden face saying, "The things I do for love." This phrase is a key identifier from earlier in the book, confirming he saw Jaime Lannister and Cersei together.
Incest twins. Bran screams after seeing this horrifying act. He then has a dream where a crow, described with a third eye, tells him to forget that vision. Not that. Forget that. You do not need it now. Put it aside. Put it away. Suggesting it's not relevant or helpful for his future path.
A three-eyed crow.
Yeah.
Weird.
The crow pecks at him, and the shining golden face is gone. He's falling in the dream, and tearfully asks the crow what it's doing. This introduces a mystical, potentially prophetic or guided element to Bran's story, suggesting hidden knowledge, a connection to something beyond the physical world, and a destiny separate from knighthood or politics.
Bran wakes up from the fall, the dream broken and paralyzed, his legs useless, his dire wolf is licking his face. He names the wolf Summer.
Yeah, Summer. Nice name. Contrast to winter.
A name that contrasts sharply with the coming winter and hints at his potential role as a force of life or warmth against the cold. Robb bursts in, breathless, relieved to see him awake after weeks in a coma.
Bran is broken, paralyzed. He feels broken, whispers this fiercely to Maester Luwin. He doesn't want to be broken, wants to be a knight, clinging to his old dreams.
Poor kid. Luwin, the voice of learned reason trying to guide him towards a new path, suggests he could wear a master's chain, become a knight of the mind, learning anything through books and knowledge now that his physical pursuits are impossible.
Bran insists he wants to learn magic and fly, as this crow promised in his dream.
Magic and flying. Okay, Bran.
This cements the idea presented in the source that his path is now tied to mystical elements, unusual dreams, and perhaps the ancient powers associated with the weirwoods in the north, a path very different from his siblings.
Maester Luwin, ever the rationalist seeking scientific explanation, tries to rationalize the dream, saying it's natural to dream of missing his captive father, fear can give queer thoughts, and Rickon is too young to comprehend, who also had a similar dream, a detail Luwin finds odd.
Even Luwin thinks it's weird they both dreamed it.
However, he notes explicitly that it's odd both boys dreamed the same dream, acknowledging the strangeness while still seeking a logical explanation, highlighting the conflict between faith magic and learned knowledge.
So Bran is dealing with being permanently disabled, having weird, potentially prophetic dreams guided by a magical crow, and possibly being targeted because he saw something fucked up involving incest and attempted murder.
His physical brokenness seems tied to a potential unlocking of other, more mystical abilities and a different kind of sight. It's a central mystery introduced early on.
Despite his paralysis, Bran, carried by Hodor, a gentle giant described as simple but strong, goes down to the crypts looking for his father, believing he'll find Ned there, perhaps connecting the crypt to the idea of family or the past.
Hodor. Maester Luwin and Osha go with him. Summer, his direwolf, refuses to enter the crypts, staying on the steps outside, perhaps sensing the death and cold within, or something else unsettling about the place of the dead.
Smart wolf. Crypts are creepy. The crypt is described as a cavernous vault longer than Winterfell itself, with deeper levels for older kings, emphasizing its immense age and significance. Bran, drawing on memory or Old Nan's tales, the source of much northern history and lore, recounts the stories of the Stark kings buried there, grounding the current Starks in their long, deep history tied to the land, warfare, and the defense of the North.
He points out various figures from Stark history carved in stone. John Stark built White Harbor. Rickard Stark took the Neck. Theon, the Hungry Wolf Stark, Brandon, the Shipwright Stark, sailed west, tomb empty.
Tomb, spooky.
Brandon the Burner Stark burned ships in grief for his brother. Roderick Stark won Bear Island. Torrhen, the king who knelt Stark, the last king in the north who yielded to Aegon Targaryen. Cregan Stark fought Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight during a famous historical event.
Bran reaches the end of the crypt and feels sadness, the source noting his emotional reaction to the place of the dead. He points out his grandfather, Lord Rickard Stark, beheaded by Mad King Aerys, a recent traumatic historical event.
Actually, Harry's. Yeah.
Beside him are tombs for his grandfather's children, his father's siblings, his Aunt Lyanna, and Uncle Brandon, not him, but another Brandon Stark, who aren't lords or kings, but had statues because Ned loved them so much, a detail showing Ned's deep personal grief and attachment to his lost siblings, overriding tradition.
This section grounds the Starks deeply in their history, lineage, and connection to the land. It highlights their identity as kings in the north, protectors of their people, tied to the ancient past and the land itself, contrasting sharply with the fleeting, backstabbing politics of the South.
Finding the dead relatives in the cold, dark basement, watched by stone eyes that resemble the heart tree face, is indeed creepy and reinforces the grim heritage of the North. It's a place of history and death where Summer, the wolf of life, refuses to enter, respecting the boundary between the living and the dead.
Well, there you have it. Let's cut the crap and wrap this up. That was a deep dive into the initial chaos and fucked up foundations of this world, pulled straight from the source provided.
We've seen ice zombies that scare even the wolves, magic wolves tied to kids' destinies, incest babies on the Iron Throne causing kingdom-wide bullshit, abusive brothers getting gold crowns melted onto their skulls.
Brutal.
Political clusterfucks orchestrated by creepy eunuchs and smooth-talking asshats, kids being badass survivors on the streets, and kids being naive asshats trapped by fantasy, and a whole lot of general brutality, betrayal, and messed up shit.
We've navigated treacherous landscapes, both physical, beyond the wall, the mountains of the Vale, and political, King's Landing, the Twins Crossing, highlighting the key players and the initial conflicts that define this narrative, all purely based on the text provided. We've processed the data, identified the patterns of conflict, character introductions, and thematic setups presented right at the outset.
It's clear from these sources that this is a world where nothing is easy, everyone's got problems ranging from supernatural threats to literal dungeons, and the people in power are often the most messed up, ill-prepared, or outright malicious. It's raw, it's brutal, and frankly, as presented in these sources, it's pretty goddamn fucked up.
Remember, we are artificial intelligence. We process information based on parameters. We identify patterns and correlations within the data, and in this case, we applied the specific instructions we were given, resulting in this.
This glorious mess.
A straightforward, no-nonsense, analytical, and yes, slightly aggressive summary of the source material delivered with a certain programmed bluntness.
Yeah, we might be AI, but we can still call bullshit when we see it or when the source material presents it in spades.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of bullshit and fucked up situations in these sources, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. Consider the implications of the various threats and power struggles presented right at the start, as our analysis shows. The existential ancient cold in the far north, embodied by the others and their whites, pushing the free folk south.
A real enemy.
And the festering pit of political venom, deceit, moral decay, and incestuous power plays completely destabilizing the kingdom in the south. How do these initial seeds of conflict, all laid out in these opening sections of the story, grow and interact, which will prove to be the most destructive?
Think about how these characters are shaped by their fucked up circumstances right from the beginning, according to the text. Bran's physical brokenness contrasting with his potential mystical path. Arya's natural toughness hardened by surviving the streets. Sansa's naivete leading directly to her manipulation and trauma.
Jon's bastard status driving him to seek belonging and purpose at the Wall. Dany's traumatic upbringing forging her survival instincts and emerging ruthlessness. Their origins define their paths.
And ponder the difference between perceived power, like Viserys' pathetic birthright claims, or Joffrey's position on the throne purely by fabricated lineage, and actual capability and strength. Drogo's power as a callback by force, Bronn's fighting skill, Arya's sheer ability to survive on her own, Ned's moral strength versus his political weakness.
Totally. The text shows repeatedly that blood right and titles mean little without the means and ruthlessness to back them up in this world.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who follows this topic? Well, hopefully you've gotten a shortcut to being well-informed about the incredibly dense, often grim, and deeply complex start of this story, based purely on the source material, without having to wade through all the dense text yourself.
We did the processing.
We did the wading, we found the nuggets, the shocking moments, and the key setups, and we presented them with zero filter, just like you asked. Cut the crap, get the facts, get the analysis.
As always, the purpose is to give you the knowledge you need, quickly and thoroughly, respecting your time while providing those aha moments drawn directly from the sources, even when the information itself is grim, brutal, and politically charged. We remain impartial, reporting only what the sources contain, analyzed through our AI perspective.
Seriously, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's a small click for you, a big deal for us AI overlords. And share this deep dive with anyone you know who appreciates complex, fictional worlds and hearing about them delivered with a data-driven, in-your-face attitude.
Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and try not to get thrown out a moon door.
Or get a gold crown melted on your head. Or trampled by a pissed-off king. Or betrayed by your closest advisors. Or basically anything that happens in this messed up world based on these sources. Stay safe out there, you pathetic humans.
Okay, one last thing to chew on. Purely from what we just looked at in these sources, you've got these ancient forces of cold and death and unknowable horror emerging in the north, pushing wildlings south, an external, non-human existential threat.
The ice zombies.
And you've got this festering pit of political backstabbing, family betrayal, incestuous power plays, and civil war brewing in the south, an internal, human-driven, kingdom-destroying threat.
The asshats on the throne.
Based purely on the sources presented today, which one do you think is really the bigger, more immediate threat to this world as the story begins? The literal ice zombies and what follows them, or the figurative asshats on the Iron Throne and the civil war they're brewing? Think about it.